So I want you to start by trying like a little thought experiment with me today.
Okay, I love a good thought experiment.
Right. So right now, wherever you are, maybe you're sitting at your desk or, maybe you're out walking the dog or just standing in your kitchen making coffee.
Yeah,
I want you to imagine that there is this universal, completely invisible, 20-sided geometric bubble surrounding your body.
a 20-sided bubble.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this isn't just some abstract conceptual bubble. Like this invisible shape is actively dictating exactly how you move. It dictates where you feel physical pain and ultimately how well your body performs on a daily basis.
It's a really profound image. I mean, mostly because we tend to think of movement in a very linear, mechanical way.
Right, like levers and pulleys.
Exactly. We assume movement is just our muscles firing and our bones acting as levers to get us from point A to point B. We almost never think about the actual invisible architecture of the space that we're moving through.
And for decades, it was essentially impossible to accurately measure that invisible architecture. Like you just couldn't do it.
No, absolutely not.
But today, we're looking at a massive breakthrough that, well, it changes that entirely. We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating presentation by Dr. Christophe Delong and Kinexa formation.
Yeah, and this is such an exciting topic.
It really is. They've basically taken this visionary, almost avant-garde movement theory from the 1950s and injected it with cutting-edge 2025 AI to literally map out and fix the dents in your invisible bubble.
The dents in the bubble, I love that frame.
Right. So we are basically looking at the ultimate cartography of the human body today.
Which is exactly what makes this specific integration of technology so compelling, you know? We aren't just looking at some shiny new piece of software that tracks how many steps you take.
Oh, totally. We've got enough of those.
Right. We are looking at the merging of two completely different eras of scientific thought here. You take the foundational observations of a genius from the mid-20th century, and you apply the massive processing power of modern artificial intelligence to, validate and automate it.
So to understand the AI that Kinexa is using in 2025, we kind of have to meet the architect of this whole concept first. We have to travel back to meet a pioneer named Rudolf Laban.
Yes, layman.
He lived from 1879 to 1958. And based on the sources that Dr. DeLong presented, Laban achieved something entirely unprecedented. He essentially invented a universal language to record all human movement across every single dimension.
And that word right there, universal, that is really the anchor here.
How so?
Well, prior to Laban, if you wanted to describe how someone was moving, you had to use highly discipline-specific jargon.
Oh, like medical terms versus sports terms?
Exactly. If a doctor was looking at you, they'd use strict anatomical terms, like flexion and extension. But a choreographer, they'd use dance notation. And a factory manager who's optimizing an assembly line would use time and motion study terms. Laban realized that this fragmentation was a huge problem. He sought a framework that applied to the human machine itself, completely regardless of what task it was performing.
That makes a lot of sense. He actually wrote a book in 1950 called The Art of Movement. And there is a quote in there that I think perfectly sets the stage for the modern AI applications we're going to get into later.
Oh, which quote?
He wrote, "The human body is an instrument capable of expressing an infinity of movements provided space is understood."
That caveat at the end, provided space is understood. That is basically the crux of his entire life's work.
Right, because you can't have one without the other.
No, you can't. Laban recognized that you can't understand the instrument if you don't understand the physical volume it occupies.
And to map that volume, Laban introduced this foundational concept, which he called the kin sphere. Kind meaning movement, sphere meaning sphere.
Right, but it's not actually a perfect globe, which is an important distinction.
Yeah, the sources say it is the three-dimensional space that is accessible to your body without you having to move your feet from whatever spot you're standing on.
Think of it as, like your personal bubble of potential reach.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If you stand perfectly still and just stretch your arms and legs out in every possible direction to their absolute maximum limit, you are tracing the outer boundary of your kinsphere.
And this brings us right back to that 20-sided bubble I asked you to imagine earlier. To visualize the kinsphere mathematically, imagine you are standing inside a giant, invisible, 20-sided die, like the ones you'd use in Dungeons and Dragons.
An icosahedron.
Yes, exactly, an icosahedron. Every one of those 20 triangular faces, every corner, which represents a specific direction, and every edge connecting them, which represents a trajectory. That is a potential path for your limbs.
But we should probably clarify why it's a 20-sided shape, and not just a simple box or a smooth globe.
Oh, right, because that does seem kind of random at first.
Yeah, Laban wasn't just drawing pretty geometric shapes around the human form for the fun of it. He was actually mapping the absolute maximum diagonal reaches of human articular mobility.
Because our joints don't just move in straight lines.
Exactly. Because our joints rotate and hinge, our furthest reaches always happen on diagonals. So if you, say, lunge forward and reach down and across your body to pick up a dropped set of keys,
Yeah.
you are pushing your hand into what biomechanists would call the anterocero-inferior dimension. The corners of that 20-sided die represent those extreme diagonal limits.
So if your ankle is like super stiff, you literally can't reach that specific corner of the die.
Precisely. And he mapped the theoretical limits of human biomechanics using pure observation and geometry.
Which is wild.
Right. Decades before we had motion capture suits or infrared cameras, he just recognized that the space around us and the mechanics of our joints are inextricably linked.
That is just so cool. So that gives us a brilliant map of the space itself. But I mean, having a map of the city doesn't really tell you how a car is driving through it.
Right. That's a great analogy.
So if the kinsphere is the territory, how on earth do we map the actual action of moving through it?
Well, Laban realized the exact same thing. A map is useless if you don't know how the traveler moves. Knowing the shape of your kinsphere didn't explain the physics or the quality of moving through it.
So what did he do?
So in 1947, he teamed up with F.C. Lawrence to publish a work titled Effort. And they figured out a way to measure the effort itself, basically breaking down all human movement into 4 fundamental factors.
And what are those factors? Let's unpack this.
They categorized them as space, weight, time, and flow.
Okay. Space, weight, time, and flow.
Yeah. And the theory is that if you can isolate those 4 variables, you can categorize literally any physical action a human being makes.
Okay, I have to stop you there because terms like flow and space, they sound incredibly poetic.
They do, yeah.
It sounds like, directions a theater director gives to an actor on a stage.
Duh.
And I get how that applies to, like, a contemporary dancer.
Yeah.
But how is this actual science?
It's a fair question.
Like, how does having bound flow or moving in indirect space apply to you and me just trying to carry heavy groceries up a flight of stairs or trying to play a casual game of tennis without pulling a hamstring?
It's a totally valid skepticism because, like you said, the terminology does sound very lyrical at first glance, but the reality behind the poetry is strictly biomechanical.
Okay, prove it to me.
Well, what came to be known as Laban movement analysis, or LMA, is actually a highly rigorous protocol for measurable kinematics.
Break that down for me. How does a word like space translate to measurable kinematics?
So in LMA, space evaluates whether a movement is direct or indirect. Biomechanically, this is all about trajectory and motor control.
Okay.
Think about just reaching for a glass of water on a table. A direct movement means your hand travels in an efficient straight line to the glass.
Right.
An indirect movement means your arm meanders. Maybe it arcs widely or zigzags a little. If a physical therapist sees you using an indirect spatial path to do a simple task, that tells them your nervous system is struggling with motor recruitment. Or maybe you're unconsciously avoiding a painful angle in your shoulder joint.
So the poetic word space is actually measuring movement efficiency.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What about weight?
Weight evaluates whether the physical force being used is strong or light. And this isn't just about how heavy the grocery bags are,
That's about the internal force.
Yes, it's about force production and tension management in your own muscles. Like, are you slamming your foot down when you walk? That would be a strong, unmanaged impact. Or are you stepping lightly and absorbing the force properly through the kinetic chain?
Okay, yeah. Then we have time, which the sources describe as sudden versus sustained.
Right. Time measures the velocity profile and neurological recruitment. So if you are doing a bicep curl at the gym, can you sustain a smooth, controlled motion all the way up and all the way down?
Which is hard to do when you're tired.
Exactly. Because if the motion is sudden, like jerky, erratic, relying on momentum, it means the muscle fibers are fatigued or weak.
And finally, flow. This is the one that sounds the most abstract to me.
Yeah.
The sources say flow is either bound or free.
Flow is arguably the most important one when we look at injury prevention, actually.
Right.
Yeah, it measures the tension across the body's segments. Free flow means the movement travels seamlessly through your joints. The energy transfers cleanly from your hip to your core to your shoulder.
Like a baseball pitcher or something.
Perfect example. Whereas bound flow means there is restriction. The muscles are co-contracting. You see this a lot when an athlete is highly anxious or, they're guarding an injury. Their movements are tight, stiff, and just rigidly bound up.
So it's not just art at all. It really is clinical data disguised as lyrical terminology.
It is so precise that LMA is widely used in industrial ergonomics to prevent factory injuries, in psychiatry to observe nonverbal behavioral cues, and at the highest levels of sports performance.
That's incredible.
To give you a super concrete example from the clinical world, think of Gray Cook's famous functional movement screen, the FMS.
Oh yeah, that's a massive staple in physical therapy. Basically, every athletic trainer uses FMS to spot asymmetries.
And that entire system is directly inspired by Levin's work.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The FMS evaluates the quality of human movement precisely through its spatial, temporal, and tonal dimensions, which is really just a modern clinical way of saying space, time, and weight.
That completely reframes the whole concept for me. Okay, so we have our invisible 20-sided kinsphere, which maps our physical reach.
Right.
And we have our 4 factors of effort, space, weight, time, and flow, which measure how we navigate that space.
You got it.
But we don't live in a perfect world. Like, what happens when our perfect 20-sided geometric bubble gets damaged?
Well, that is exactly where Dr. Delong's presentation introduces the concept of a reduced kinsphere.
Reduced kinsphere, okay.
Yeah, in a healthy, fully mobile person, a normal kinsphere is beautifully symmetrical. You can reach the front left corner just as easily as the back right corner.
Right.
But when we suffer injuries or, develop terrible postural habits from staring at screens all day or just age, we develop mobility restrictions. And those restrictions physically deform your kinsphere.
You essentially warp the 20-sided die.
You do. It compresses specific sectors of your personal space. But here's the critical part. Your brain still demands that you accomplish tasks.
Right, you still have to get through the day.
Exactly. You still need to walk to the kitchen. You still need to pick up your child. So because one sector is compressed, your central nervous system forces other sectors of your body to overwork to make up the difference.
The presentation from Kinexa Formation gives some incredibly specific examples of this, and I want to ground this in human reality for a second.
Sure.
The source notes that a stiff ankle reduces your anteroinferior dimension. We talked about that earlier. Basically means the front lower part of your bubble shrinks. Or if you have a blocked, tight shoulder, it compresses the supraposterior sector, which is the upper back part of your bubble. Even a shortened psoas muscle, like that deep hip flexor that gets tight from sitting too much.
Oh, yeah, the psoas is a big one.
Right, that reduces your posterior hip extension, shrinking the back of your bubble.
And we really have to look at why the body cares about those isolated restrictions. The human body is this interconnected kinetic chain. A restriction in one isolated joint doesn't just stay in that joint.
It travels.
It creates a global compensation because of the fascial system. That's the web of connective tissue that links your right foot all the way up to your left shoulder.
So let's translate this into an everyday scenario for you listening right now. Let's say you have a stiff right ankle from an old sprain you never properly rehabbed.
A very common scenario.
You have essentially dented the bottom corner of your invisible bubble. But your vestibular system, your inner ear, demands that your eyes stay level with the horizon when you walk.
Exactly. The brain prioritizes a level gaze above almost everything else.
So to keep you upright and moving forward with level eyes, your body has to kind of snake around that ankle restriction. It forces your opposite shoulder to slightly bulge out of its normal trajectory and work twice as hard with every single step just to counterbalance the dent in your ankle.
Right.
Fast forward 5 years, and you have unexplained chronic shoulder pain. You go to a doctor for your shoulder, but the pain is actually an ankle dent.
You're touching on the exact reason why traditional isolated medicine often fails chronic pain patients. The pain is in the shoulder, yes, but the dysfunction, the actual root cause, is in the ankle's kinsphere.
Because you've warped the whole system.
Right. You haven't just dented the bubble, you've pulled the entire fascial structure off-center. This is why mapping the whole system is so vital.
And to show what a healthy, undented kinsphere looks like, the Kinexa presentation uses the case study of a perfect squat viewed through Levin's 4 factors. It's fascinating how it breaks down when you apply these metrics.
It really illuminates how complex a seemingly simple movement actually is.
Right. So for space, a perfect squat requires a direct trajectory. You need to go straight down and straight up. There can't be any indirect drifting of the knees, collapsing inward or bowing outward.
Which happens a lot.
Yeah. And for weight, it requires controlled force production. You aren't just collapsing under the gravity of the barbell, you are actively managing strong structural tension.
And then look at time and flow.
Right, for time, it requires an appropriate speed profile. A healthy squat is sustained and controlled on the descent, and perhaps sudden or explosive on the ascent.
Exactly.
And then for flow, it requires a beautifully fluid movement between all the body's segments. Like the ankles, knees, and hips all have to unlock together in a free-flowing sequence rather than rigidly binding up one joint at a time.
When you look at a squat that way, it's no longer just a gym exercise where you quote-unquote bend your knees. It is a complex harmony of 4 factors interacting within a perfectly symmetrical kinsphere.
It's almost beautiful when you put it like that.
It really is. But here is the major problem, and honestly, the entire reason Kinexa formation exists. Tracking all 20 faces of that icosahedron and calculating the directness of space, the subtle shifts in weight, time, and flow, all simultaneously across every joint in the body. Doing that by the naked eye is nearly impossible.
Even for a highly trained physical therapist.
Think about it. The human eye processes visual information at roughly the equivalent of 30 to 60 frames per second. We blink, we lose focus. We can really only look at one joint at a time.
That's true.
If an athlete does a squat, a coach might look at their knees and say, "Looks good," but they completely missed the subtle bound flow in the left hip.
You would literally need superhuman vision to see the micro-compensations happening across the entire kinetic chain in real time.
Which is exactly where Dr. Christophe Delong and the team at Kinexa Formation step into the story, bringing us from 1947 straight into 2025.
Right. So Kinexa has essentially digitized and completely automated Rudolf Lebon's universal map.
Yeah.
According to the presentation, they are tracking these complex kinematics continuously at an astonishing 200 hertz.
200 hertz, yes.
That means their AI is analyzing your movement 200 times every single second. That is just, it's insane.
And we have to explain why that leap from 60 frames per second to 200 hertz is so revolutionary for human health.
Walk us through it.
At 60 frames per second, your eye sees a smooth squat. It looks perfectly symmetrical. But at 200 hertz, Kinexa's AI sees that for exactly 3 milliseconds, your left knee essentially micro-collapsed inward under the load before your brain caught it and corrected it.
But the naked eye literally cannot see a 3-millisecond correction.
It's physically impossible. But over the course of a sports season or over 10,000 squats in a gym, that invisible 3-millisecond collapse is exactly what eventually tears your meniscus. 200 hertz means the AI is catching the micro wobbles. It catches the tiny compensations in your flow that precede a catastrophic injury.
So they use this automated Levin movement analysis to create an entirely individual kinesphere map for every single athlete or patient? It pinpoints exactly what specific geometric sectors of your 20-sided bubble are compressed and what sectors need restoring.
Exactly.
But I have to admit, I look at this technology and I marvel at it. But I also have a major question.
Okay, what's the concern?
How, measuring human flow at 200 frames a second, are we essentially turning human beings into highly calibrated video game characters?
Ah, I see what you mean.
Like, if every single 3-millisecond micro-wobble is mathematically flagged as a defect, doesn't it lose the humanity of movement? Are we pathologizing every tiny quirk in how someone walks?
That's a really important distinction to make. But if you look closely at Dr. Delong's presentation, this technology actually does the exact opposite. It validates the humanity of movement. Well, there is this beautiful, almost poetic symmetry between Lebon in 1947 and Kinexa in 2025. Back in 1947, Lebon insisted that this map of the kinsphere was universal. It didn't matter if you were an elite Olympic athlete, a manual factory worker, or just a child learning to walk.
Right.
Every human evolves and expresses themselves within those same spatial, tonal, and temporal dimensions. The map has always been there, hidden in plain sight. It is the language our bodies naturally speak.
So they aren't forcing us into a robotic ideal.
Not at all. In 2025, what Kinexa Formation has done is finally given us the technological GPS to read our own map in real time, objectively.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
They aren't turning us into robots. They are giving us the tools to understand our own physical language. When you can see the dents in your kinsphere, you can restore your natural human flow. As the Kinexa presentation profoundly states at the very end, Movement is a space to understand.
Movement is a space to understand. I really love that phrasing. It brings the entire journey we've taken today into focus.
It really does.
We started with Rudolf Laban, a choreographer in the mid-20th century, who visualized a 20-sided kinsphere and defined the four factors of effort space, weight, time, and flow.
Yeah.
And we followed that exact same geometric logic all the way to Dr. Christoph Delong and Kinexa Formation, who are using 200 Hz AI to automatically map those concepts, uncover our hidden bodily compensations, and literally fix the dents in our invisible bubbles before they cause chronic pain.
It fundamentally changes how you view your own physical existence.
It really does.
Once you understand that you are moving within this highly reactive, interconnected volume of space, you stop ignoring the small aches and pains. You realize they are symptoms of a warped kinsphere.
And that brings us right back to you listening to this deep dive. The next time you stand up from a chair, or walk to the kitchen to grab a glass of water, or hit the gym for a heavy workout, I want you to picture that invisible icosahedron around you.
Just take a second to feel it.
Yeah. Are your movements direct and free? Or are you subtly compensating for a dented, warped kinsphere that you didn't even know was there? Are you throwing your shoulder out of alignment just to protect a stiff ankle?
Awareness is always the first step to restoration. Once you feel the restriction, you can actually begin to address the flow.
Absolutely. Now, if you're listening and you want to actually explore mapping your own movement, or, if you're a practitioner looking to understand this 200 Hertz AI, the source materials from Kinexa are incredible.
Highly recommend them.
Yeah, you should check out the Kinexa ebook on Rudolf Laban, the Gesture Visionaries materials, or you can dive straight into their online training platform at formation.kinexa.ai. They really are pioneering the ultimate cartography of the human body.
Before we finish, considering everything we've unpacked about mapping the physical body with such incredible mathematical precision, there is a natural extension to this concept that I want to leave everyone with.
Oh, what's up?
If technology can now map the physical flow of our bodies at 200 times a second to catch micro-wobbles and perfectly restore our physical health, how long until this same universal language is used to map the correlation between our physical movements and our hidden emotional or psychological states?
Oh, wow. That is a crazy thought.
Right, because we know that anxiety creates bound flow and depression creates a compressed kinsphere. So if your body speaks an infinite observable language, what is it saying about your mind right now?